Good afternoon. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio today with my dad and co-host, Alex Urbina. Hi, Dad.
What's happening?
Today we are going to be talking about who is really teaching your kids. And I think this topic's pretty interesting because there's a lot of factors that we don't consider that play into our lives and who teaches us and who we really learn things from. And we've talked about this before a little bit, but what I really want to focus on today is our teachers, like our actual educational teachers and their responsibilities, and then who's responsible for teaching us things outside of the classroom.
Yeah, I think that it's very common for teachers that become frustrated with their role and, questioning where do I as a teacher stop focusing and being in resistance to the parents that are doing their role and their teaching at home. And the subject came up because there was a couple of clients recently that I was working with, and I realized that it seems to be a common oversight as parents that we forget to teach our kids certain things to set them up and prep them to be able to go into school and learn some of the fundamentals that the schools are teaching in academia. And the thing that I really want to talk about today and ask the question as parents is, are you committed to and intently focused on teaching your kids morals, values, and principles, which is what I call the foundation for building your kids up to be able to have a certain level of confidence such that they're able to take on their life in a powerful way and navigate through the choices that they have to make that life's going to throw at them at different stages that's going to challenge them. Do they have those fundamental principles and values and morals that's going to guide them down that path to righteousness?
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to kind of point out is that I can kind of think back to growing up and kind of remembering the people who did teach me things that my parents didn't. And a lot of it came from, yes, my teachers in the academic part, but a lot of the life stuff and experience stuff came from like my friends, my cousins, my coaches, maybe a little bit, my aunts, uncles, obviously my parents too. But you have to kind of realize as a parent that if you're not teaching them that, somebody else is one of those other factors. So, you don't necessarily want your 15-year-old to learn, whatever from another 15-year-old.
Their morals.
Yeah, you want to instill that when they're younger, or even a 6-year-old learning their morals from their 6-year-old friends, because their morals are different. Their 6-year-old friend might be stealing pencils in kindergarten, or like little things that shape them. If
It's
you're not
okay
doing
to take
it first.
something that's not yours as long as you're putting it to good use. Let's say that's the model that the 15-year-old that's influencing your kids or teaching them those behavior patterns.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other factors. What I'm trying to point out is that if you're not doing it, somebody else is.
That's a great point.
And that's when parents come in and they say, I don't know where you got that from. I don't know who taught you that. And they don't want to take responsibility. And maybe you didn't directly teach them that, but indirectly you let somebody else kind of influence them in that way.
I agree. And as well as teaching them directly, indirectly, you're teaching them actually by modeling. So the way that you model your life, mom and dad, as, either a leader or a follower or somebody who is misguided or just making choices on the whim or don't have a solid context yourself. Maybe you haven't developed a strong character of morals and values and principles because maybe your parents didn't teach you at a higher level. Then what you're doing is you're indirectly teaching your kids based on the modeling. Whether you like it or not, they're watching you and they're picking up little things. So, today's topic is really about being in the question. And the question is, how good am I doing at teaching my kids, principled, valued, centered, valued, love valued distinctions so that they can navigate their life with a solid framework to operate in the world in a powerful way.
Yeah, and I guess my question kind of is, other than modeling it, other than being the example, I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering how you're supposed to do that. How do I teach morals? How do I teach values and principles? And especially to a little kid, a young kid, because you want to teach it early.
I think, it falls down to the fundamental principle of modeling. And it's you deciding that you're going to be the example for your kids such that they're seeing it, and then not just trusting that they're watching you, but also having dialogue about it. So what I like to do is I like to not only practice being it myself, but open up dialogue about it. And then I also coach my clients, those parents that are committed to a higher level of parenting, the conscious parents, is as you're modeling it, you're also pointing that out. You're also revealing yourself to your kids, and you're letting them know, hey, I had a difficult decision yesterday and I really struggled with which decision to make. And then it took me a little while to get centered and grounded. And then I realized that the best decision to make was based on doing the right thing. And the right thing fell back upon honor. And so I chose out of honor. And so you just sharing that process that you have gone through or you're going through with your kids is a very powerful way of teaching, rather than pointing out when they're not making those choices and making them bad and wrong because they didn't make the highest choice. The best way to teach them is for you to model it and then share that breakthrough that you had, or share that journey that you're on with them. And then they're watching and learning that, and then they're taking that and owning it for themselves.
So what about I guess in course correction, that's like probably the best way to go. Share your experience and then kind of relate it to theirs, because it's not doing any good to point fingers and say you did this and that was wrong, but they do need to know that it was wrong. So how do you go about course correcting that?
That's a great question. I use the feel, felt, found method. And if you haven't heard this before, it's first time listening to it, it's I know how you feel, and I can understand how you felt like that. However, what I found out is when I've been in those situations, these are the things that I had to look at, and these are the things that I had to weigh in before making that decision. So the feel, felt, found is a very powerful tool to let your son or daughter know that you know how they feel, and that you've also felt like that before, and then you're kind of sharing your wisdom of the breakthroughs that you have, or it's almost like you're painting another picture for them to look at that's neutral, that's not making them bad and wrong. It's a new way to open up a possibility for them that they can't yet see for themselves, but you're not putting it on them and you're not projecting it on them. You're just spilling out in front of them so they can be separate looking into it, rather than trying to shove it down their throat or put it on top of them. You're just kind of revealing yourself. That seems to be the most powerful method, is the feel, felt, found, because then the kids are now listening intently. But if you're pointing out what they're doing wrong, all of a sudden now they're not intently listening. They're shut down and their walls are up and their guards up because you've kind of made them bad and wrong, and now they feel guilty. And there's no learning in that possibility. There's no teaching and no landing that distinction. So you have to learn how to open your kids up and not shut them down before you want to teach that lesson.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering too a little bit, because everything you're saying to me sounds challenging. It sounds like it's a everyday, like you constantly have to be doing it. And it seems like teachers, they're teaching, I don't want to say the easy stuff, but it's the textbook stuff. They're teaching, the English, the math, history, whatever. And parents, they have to come home and teach them all the hard stuff, the challenging stuff that's things that if you're not paying attention, it's gonna slip by, kind of thing. And I guess the part that for me, like growing up, was I never really felt like I was being taught those things. I think maybe you guys were secretly teaching them to me, or you didn't realize like that needed to be taught yet. So I'm not sure. Like I wanted kind of just to ask you, when I was younger, what were you doing? Because I don't ever remember specifically being taught, this is why you don't do this or this,
I wasn't doing it as intently as I will be with your kids as a grandfather. However, I made a decision at the age of 23, being a young father, that I knew instinctually, once I had my awakening, that I was going to be setting the tone for my kids in the future, that they were going to be learning by what they saw me do or not do. So I made a decision a long time ago to decide that I'm going to start modeling all the things that I want to see in my own kids. So if I wanted to see my kids being respectful to other people and their parents, I need to start showing respect to my parents. I need to start showing respect to other people, even if I disagree with them, or even if they took advantage of me or they hurt me in some way. I still got to be modeling that. So I decided that a long time ago, but I didn't every day go, okay, I need to be doing this. That's why we're having this conversation, because I want to teach other people to be more mindful and have that awakening and that have that learning curve even before I started realizing it. And I started realizing it at an early age, in my early 20s. But it's never too late for you to go, you know what, that makes sense. I need to start focusing on those things. I need to start looking to find open opportunities for me to grab in there and teach. And I talk about this a lot in my book, about finding those teachable moments. There are thousands of teachable moments that are happening in a day that if you're unconscious, you're not noticing them. If you're really conscious and present and mindful, you're noticing that throughout the day, your kids are revealing teachable moments for you to get in there and go, hey, let's talk about this for a minute. Or, hey, notice yesterday you did this, and I was curious to wonder why you chose that. Those are the kinds of dialogues that we as parents need to start engaging in, because those are the opportunities for us to plant those seeds for our kids to sprout, for them to have those morals, values, and principles.
Yeah, and again, I really like focusing on, I guess, the title of our topic, the who's really teaching your kids, because I'm thinking of the people that they spend. I'm going back to the teachers, because they spend so much time with them, like 6 hours a day, sometimes longer, and they're teaching them a lot of stuff indirectly too, not just as educational wise. They're teaching them stuff just by their personality, the way they're acting, and the way that they're being. And obviously we trust our teachers and everything, but looking at from the parent's point of view, you might not want your kid's teacher to teach them those types of things. As much as it would probably help you, there's probably some things in there that you would do differently or add a different kind of value, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. In fact, there's actually a movement that's happening, whether people know it or not, where more and more parents are starting to take back control of teaching their own kids, and they're homeschooling their kids, which is a very profound phenomenon that's happening with conscious parents. And it's just, simply the parent deciding that, you know what, maybe I need to get back in there and get more time with my kids, rather than turning my kids over to other people. Not saying that other people don't have the value to teach your kids. It's just maybe you've decided that I want to play a bigger part. I want to get in there and really kind of gear their learning more towards emotional intelligence.
Or maybe you want to teach them something's more important than something else that they're teaching. And,
that's right.
And which I like. I like being able to pick and decide. I guess that sounds a little bit... my controlling side, I guess, gets excited because I get to do that. But I wanted to share a story.
But why not? Why not have that as an option in today's world? When I was growing up, there weren't those options. It was just, you
got sent off to school.
You got sent off to school, and it was the 90% of the thing to do, because there weren't options. There weren't other schools out there that were charter, or there weren't other schools out there that were alternative options. Homeschooling was probably things that only the celebrities did, their kids. And, but now it's an option to everybody. And it's this new conscious awakening for more parents to realize, wow, I have that option. And wow, there's other people doing that, and they're doing it successfully. And look at their kids. They're thriving. They have this very successful mindset and emotional balanced kids that are able to really take on the challenges that the world's going to throw at them, and they're able to do it, very flawlessly and very emotionally and very healthy.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I wanted to share. It triggered a story that I read on Facebook, and it was about a woman who took her daughter out of public school and put her into a charter school. And basically what had happened was the daughter went to school, a regular school day to learn, and she got in trouble, called up to the office because she was wearing a tank top that showed her bra straps. And so the daughter comes home from school with a t-shirt, like a gym t-shirt on, and she's crying, and she asks her what happened. She tells her story, and she tells her, I was so embarrassed that, one, I got pulled out of class, and then the rest of the day, everybody knew that I was in trouble because I was wearing that t-shirt. It's like you got shirted or something. Like,
it's like the shame shirt, right?
Yes. And so the mom was so furious because they put her daughter in that situation, for one, and for two, they didn't call her or give her the option to go home, or, basically didn't give the mom the option to teach that lesson. It was like they decided that they had the right to teach that lesson to her, and I guess that was really, upsetting. So she called the school and got into this, big fight with them, ended up pulling her out and putting her in a charter school. And the ending of her story was that she didn't want someone else to tell her daughter that the way she dressed was inappropriate because it was a distraction to boys or to distraction to others, because that wasn't important. What's important, why she sends her daughter to school, was to learn, was to get an education, not to be shamed or embarrassed. But not just that, they were putting that experience in front of the experience that she would have learned being in class. So, and that really sat with me. And I remember being in school and the same thing, having to walk around with the shirt. And I remember I said, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm going home. I was lucky because I was a teenager. I mean, I was older, and I texted my mom and I said, come pick me up. I'm so embarrassed. And she sent somebody to come get me. And to me, that was really emotional. That was really embarrassing. And it was, to me, not a big deal. But the situation that they put me in and made it a big deal. And so I really liked that story because I got to see a parent who understood her daughter, so much so that she actually did something about it. Not just a parent that said, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be wearing clothes like that then. Or, you know what, I'm sorry that happened to you. Next time we'll just be more careful with what we wear. That parent actually took a stand and did something for her daughter.
Well, it definitely for sure became a teachable moment for mom and daughter. However, you hope that the people that are at these educational systems would practice being a little bit more sensitive and kind of do it in a way that was a little bit more compassionate, and also taking in consideration that you're speaking to someone's daughter. This is someone's little girl that, whether she did it intentionally or not, let's not rule out that maybe she just wasn't aware of it and she did it, and you just gotta handle some things sometimes delicately. And a lot of times when we have administrators that get disconnected from humanity and being compassionate, or have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, it's very easy to come to the conclusion that these kids just don't, and they create these beliefs in this box, and then they're treating everybody the same way, not realizing that it can cause some damage, emotional damage.
And one thing I would add to that too is I think it's really important for the administrators to realize, yes, those things, but also realize the person that they're putting in charge of that task. So if the person in charge of that task is the campus supervisor, that campus supervisor should have been warned or maybe trained a certain way to handle those situations. And then in my experience, when I went to the front office, for being in trouble and having to wear the shame shirt, I was given the shame shirt and I had to sign a piece of paper that basically was almost an apology. And I just signed it just so I wouldn't get in trouble and have to go to the principal's office. But the person...
You were signing an apology
it was almost like I acknowledge what I've done and I won't do it again kind of thing, and I had to sign it.
So it was having you take accountability for the choice you made.
So, okay. and I can understand that to a certain extent, but I guess maybe 15-year-old me couldn't. And I was really emotional. But not just that, the administrator that was in charge of that was not friendly. She obviously dealt with that a lot, and it was just a thing she did. It was almost like an assembly line, and you forget that the kids that you're dealing with are human, have emotions, and high emotion at that time. So I just wanted to share that story because I thought, wow, what a powerful way and what a powerful stance for that mom to take, and realize that these, some schools, not all, some public schools or whatever kind of school, are putting are teaching your kids lessons like that maybe you wouldn't have taught that way. Maybe it is a good lesson, but it wasn't taught the way that you would have liked for your child.
And it's consistent with the title, which was,
who's really teaching them?
Who's really teaching them? We could be teaching them directly, indirectly. We can be teaching consciously or unconsciously. And if you're turning your kids over to any kind of educational system or people, even though they have good intentions, and I'm sure they've signed up to be facilitators or teachers with all their heart, sometimes people start off with the intention to teach and help and make a difference in the world. And while they're in that industry, sometimes they get turned off by the types of frustrations and the things that aren't happening the way they want it to happen. And we can easily lose sight on why we're there in the first place, and can become cold and not open-minded and putting, our assumptions and projecting that onto some of the kids, and indirectly teaching them lessons like shame and fault, and not really empowering the kids and not realizing that we're not doing that as well.
Yeah, and I feel like as a parent, maybe you have a little bit more compassion for your kid, or you want better for them, that you're, for the most part, consciously teaching those lessons. If you are teaching those lessons, they're more likely conscious, and you can do it in a passionate way and custom to that kid, where, the principal or the educators, the teachers, facilitators, they I don't want to say they can't, but they just can't do it as effectively as you can as the parent.
I believe that too. I'm in alignment with you.
We have to take a quick break, but stay tuned for more of the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Mission Valley Bank puts the community in community banking. They strive to be your most trusted bank. Mission Valley Bank is happy to sponsor KHTS Holiday Music. Happy holidays!
KHTS Holiday Music also brought to you by Chiquita Canyon.
From all of us at Chiquita Canyon, we'd like to wish you and your family a happy, prosperous holiday season. This year, Chiquita Canyon is proud to sponsor holiday music on your local hometown station, KHTS. Happy holidays.
The Santa Clarita Artists Association has a new gallery in downtown Newhall on 6th Street between Main and Railroad, right across from the Canyon Theater Guild. The gallery features our members' paintings, sculptures, and one-of-a-kind handcrafted gift items. Whether you're an art lover, buyer, or an artist wishing to join, visit our website at santaclaritaartist.org, come to our free monthly meetings at Barnes & Noble, or stop by the gallery. For upcoming events and exhibits, check us out at santaclaritaartist.org. We make visual art visible.
Drugs or alcohol abuse can tear a family apart. In Santa Clarita, just like everywhere else, it's an epidemic. The Way Out Recovery is here to help. Call them now at 296-4444 or visit them on the web at thewayoutrocoveryscv.com. The Way Out offers outpatient treatment for adolescents, adults, and family members. The Way Out is compassionate, caring, professional, and confidential. You and your family don't have to suffer any longer. Call the Way Out Recovery now, 296-4444, or visit thewayoutrocoveryscv.com and make an appointment. Asking for help is the first step.
It's time to put the pedal to the metal. I'm Alan Taylor, host of The Drive, your source for all things auto. Broadcasting from the Peterson Automotive Museum every Saturday morning from 6 to 9 a.m. right here on KHTS. Brought to you by your friends at Galpin Motors.
Hey Dodgers fans, check out the KHTS website at hometownstation.com. Get the latest news and sports happenings in our Santa Clarita Valley, find out more about KHTS shows and our on-air features, plus receive incredible discounts with our restaurant roast certificates. That's hometownstation.com.
Hometown.
I wanted to let you know that I really appreciate the way you guys do what you do.
Your hometown station.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we're talking about who's really teaching your kids. And in the first half, we kind of went over the different influences and forces that are, affecting your kids' lives. But I kind of want to get into what the actual things that parents, could effectively be teaching their kids outside of school, like earlier we said the morals, the principles, the values. What are those things that we could be teaching them?
Well, there's a lot of them. But let's get down to the ones
Look at the best ones. Like,
let's start with honesty or integrity. How, are you focused on finding teachable moments to remind your kids that having integrity in their life is a valuable tool, and that what kind of trust and what level of trust can be created in your relationships? Did something just fall?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. Keep going.
As long as it doesn't fall in my head, we're okay. So, you want to ask yourselves, what kind of opportunities or possibilities are revealing themselves for me to teach my kids how to be honest? And what value do they get from being honest in their relationships?
Well, you actually have a really interesting story that you shared in your book, The Inspirational Parent, about me being young and teaching me this lesson of honesty and integrity. If you want to go ahead and share it for the people who haven't read it or haven't heard it yet on air, and I kind of have something to say to that as the person who got the lesson.
So in short, when you were 4 or 5 years old, you were lying quite often. And it happens, when you got kids that there's 2 or 3 of them, and somebody breaks something, or someone writes on a wall, or someone does something in the home where the parent's trying to course correct, and they go, "Who did this?" And you look at all 3 of your kids, you line up, you go, "Who did this?" And they all go, "Not me." And then the other 2 kids are looking at the one kid, not realizing that we can see you. And so that's what happened, was all 3 of you were like, "Not me, Dad, not me, Dad." And then your brother and sister, both their eyes rolled right to you. And you have that look that you go like this, right? And so it was obvious that it was you. And then every time I would ask you, like, "Did you do this?" For whatever reason, you were so stubborn as a little kid that you were like, you were not going to take ownership. And I'm only assuming that at that time it was because you were afraid of whatever consequence was going to come from you getting in trouble. And I got to take ownership and responsibility for, how I could have been unconsciously parenting you to the point where you were so afraid of paying some kind of a price. So at a certain point, what I started to do in my early years of being a conscious parent or a conscious dad was realizing that I needed to figure out how to explain to you and trusting that you were mature enough to realize the price you would pay as you got older if you kept lying. And so what I did was I trusted myself and I trusted you. And I started to explain to you in language that a 4 or 5-year-old would understand that later on, if you keep lying, people aren't going to trust you. And then I remember asking you, is having people trust you important? And you, with little tears in your eyes, said yes. And then I asked you why. And then you gave me your validation of why it was important for mommy and daddy to trust you. And then when I connected the dots between telling the truth and having people trust you, for whatever reason, the switch that you had inside you clicked. And once you flipped that switch, you slowly started to come around. And I made a safe environment, and I made a promise to you at 5 years old that if you started to tell the truth, that I was going to really take that in consideration, and I was going to be easier on you on the punishment. And so I had to set that environment up for you to have that teachable moment land. And I'm so glad that I did. And I'm so glad that you responded, because now you have really high integrity in your life, and it means a lot to me. And it was just a story that I had shared in the book because I wanted to paint a picture of what it could be like to actually find a teachable moment and then teach our kids and trust that they can learn from it.
Yeah, and for me, growing up with that lesson always kind of in the back of my mind was, I guess, the thing that sometimes taught me right from wrong. It was like the little voice. Like, I knew, it was almost like once you know something, you can't unknow it. And there's just a lot of power, I guess, in owning the thing that you know and not pretending to ignore it. And for me, that was really important to always hold on to that one lesson. And in that, I encounter people that don't have that integrity or are not honest, and it infuriates me so much because it's like the one thing that that you hate about yourself, or you're insecure about yourself.
You notice in other people, others, and it bugs you.
And it bothers me so much when I sometimes I just want to straight up say, like, listen, I know you're lying. I don't want to ruin our. I don't want to make this awkward for you or embarrass you. But let's just get past this and go. And like I can't necessarily do it like that. But that's like what's screaming, in my ear, and it's the thing that bothers me so much. Just knowing that some people haven't had that lesson taught, and I do have compassion for that. So, the reason why I really wanted you to share that story was just because I wanted, I guess, parents to know that those things do work. And had that not been taught to me, I probably would still be telling like my little fibs and lies so I wouldn't get in trouble, with my bosses or still my parents.
Actually, with your personality style as a controller, you would be a manipulator. You would be a narcissistic female manipulator. You would be manipulating people with your lies and then believing them to the point where you would destroy relationships. People wouldn't trust you anymore. That's how powerful you are. And I noticed that as a little girl that you were really good at lying. And I knew intuitively if I don't course correct this and make a conscious effort at figuring out who I need to be to cause that shift, it's going to be heartbreaking for me in my 30s or 40s to watch you continue to manipulate people. If you were doing it at 4 and I wasn't conscious enough to realize that I got to do something different, you would be going down a path that you would be struggling and paying a price big time. But I wanted to point out something that I really thought about, and that's, had I not been on that conscious journey and be aware to notice that and then figure out who I needed to be to course correct that, my unconscious journey would have had me be frustrated at you and make it all about you. And I would be projecting my fear and anger consistently on you, which would have forced you to continue to do that pattern. And I never would have had the awakening to go, hey, Alex, has it ever dawned on you that you're showing up in a certain way that's not making her feel safe enough to find the value of telling the truth? That was a pivotal moment for me. Then I couldn't have had that had I not been willing to really look at myself in an honest way and be mindful and conscious and aware of that. So I'm so grateful that I have embarked on that journey at such a young age, because it has taught me a lot about the part that I play in raising my kids and creating that safe space for you guys to learn those lessons.
So we got honesty and integrity. We got, what else?
I think a lot of the big ones is responsibility. Responsibility is a very powerful distinction. It's a leadership distinction that when it's taught to you and you understand the distinction between being the responsible version, taking the accountability version, versus being the victim, you really realize what personal power is all about. So I'll give you a quick understanding of this. When an incident happens and you're the effect of it, it's very easy for most of us to choose to take the responsible version. This happened to me. Look what you did to me. When I choose that version, then I'm now blaming you for something that you did to me or did upon me. Most of us, when we're unconscious, we automatically go to that version and we own that and we live there as the victim for 80 years. Rather than realizing that I actually have a choice to choose to take the responsible version. And the responsible version would imply that I played a part in it to some degree. Maybe not all of it, but I played a part. So that part that I get to explore of trying to own a piece or all of being responsible would have me go, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, you did this to me, and I can choose that version. However, if I can look to see what was missing in me that I allowed this to happen. So now I can look and go, all right, to some degree, I let you do this to me. I set myself up for this. I trusted you. I didn't look at the warning signs. I wasn't listening to what other people were telling me. I gave you that power to be able to do that to me. So therefore, I have to take some accountability for it. Now, the power comes in you owning that responsibility, because once I take responsibility, I can actually change it and course correct it. When I choose the victim version and I'm blaming you, it's something that you have power over me and I can't change it.
Well, Yeah, there's a lot of power in taking responsibility. And what I find really interesting is when I take responsibility for something that, as much as I want to be a victim to, as much as I want to say, I can't believe you did
think we're addicted to being the victim. Seriously.
We really are. It's like,
I have
to fight it.
It's an interpersonal, we're addicted to blaming other people. And it really takes a courageous warrior to find that responsible
I really genuinely believe that my ego loves to feel bad for me.
Absolutely.
Like, it's like obsessed with, and
of
it
course it
wants
is.
to baby me, and it feels good for a little bit.
It wants to pat you on the back and say, see what happens when you trust people, and look what it wasn't your fault, and they did this to you.
One thing I find really interesting about taking responsibility is I don't know if it empowers other people to also take responsibility, because there could be one situation where I'm fighting back and forth. I'm going to say with my sister, me and her are fighting back and forth. And as soon as I go, you know what? I guess I could have done this better, and I should have known this or whatever. And then she goes, well, I guess maybe I could have also done this. It's like,
That's right.
It's very powerful for one of us to stop and take responsibility, because the other one goes, well, it's not entirely your fault.
That's right.
I was there too. So
it's actually a phenomenon. It's this very powerful phenomenon that if one of you, while you're blaming each other in an argument to be right about whose fault it is, if just one of you evolves to the next level and goes, you know what, let's stop. I own it. I should have said something. I should have, and I didn't. I swear, 95% of the time, the other person will stop and go, no, it's not entirely your fault. I played a part too. And then now we're fighting to take responsibility for it, which is it's a very powerful phenomenon.
And you know what? Sometimes, I'm not going to lie, there's times where I take responsibility and the other person's like,
yeah,
okay, I forgive you.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah.
But then
you'll get that 5% that they're so addicted to being the victim and being right that everyone is out to get them, that when you take ownership for it, they feel vindicated. Like, yes, thank you for owning that. And you're like, all right, I'll own it. But you grow because of it. They don't.
A part of me, the justification is, I'll tell myself, you know what, they really needed that win. Because
how many other people didn't take responsibility in their life, and they've been fighting for 30, 40 years to have somebody own it.
Yeah. So in that 5%, I have a lot of compassion, because sometimes I'm there. Sometimes I've been there where someone takes responsibility. Absolutely. And I'm like, thank you. And that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah. And now we can go eat, right?
Yeah.
Or now we can go. Yeah.
Now we can enjoy the rest of our time.
So responsibility is a big one. When you teach, when you find opportunities or teachable moments to teach your kids how to take responsibility, and then you insert yourself in that teachable moment and say, hey, you know what? Dad doesn't always take responsibility either. And so this is a great learning opportunity for you and me. Or this is just a reminder that I need to start taking more responsibility. And what would it look like if all of us started to choose to take responsibility for our own lives and our own interactions and our own, relationships? So the next thing I think would be a big one would be, how about honor or respect for each other? I think that, and it's just an observation, but it seems like more and more millennials and starting to trickle down into the I generation, where respect and honor is not really being maybe not taught in their schools or in, some of their ongoings of their family life. How do we start to really open up a dialogue about honoring first yourself and respecting yourself to a high level, such that now it's automatic that you honor and respect other people?
I think for the millennial generation, honor and respecting your elders or, people above you, whatever, that was really pushed on us so much that we wanted to resist it, because that's just, I think, our personality style a little bit.
Well, not only that, but you got to think of, you were resisting it, especially if your parents weren't giving it to you.
Right.
It's like people, hey, how hypocritical of you to say to honor and respect me or anyone else when you're not giving me that honor and respect yourself.
Exactly. There's people that they request something from you simply because they are older than you, even though they don't give it to you.
Oh, they've earned it.
They've earned it from past years that have nothing to do with you.
I've honored and respected my parents. Now because I've done that, you need to now honor and respect me.
Yeah, and I really genuinely don't. I think for the most part, yes, all of our kids, we honor and respect our parents because we look up to them. And it's maybe like a natural thing if we have, genuine love for our parents. It just doesn't come off the way that our parents want. Our parents want, I don't know, it's weird. Our parents, maybe they want what they did to their parents, like, yes, ma'am, no, sir. And that's, obviously not us, and that's not the way we were parented. But it's like they want that, but they do not. I don't want to say they do nothing to deserve it, but they don't reciprocate. They don't give me, respect. They don't respect my privacy, so why should I respect theirs? Or it goes back to being the example and teaching and learning and modeling what you want your kids to be. If you're not doing it, you're not going to get it back either. So
let's talk about that a little bit. Let's spend a little bit of time, because I have to believe there's parents out there going, but I show respect to my kids, but they just don't show it back. So paint a picture for me of what a parent might not be noticing or really looking at themselves, of how they could be showing disrespect or lack of respect to their kids. Is it in their tone when they speak? Is it certain words they use? Is it them not being patient enough or confident in themselves to not even say anything in certain moments? What is that element that parents maybe unconsciously are missing the cue on this?
I think parents they feel entitled to knowing our lives and our everything, which I understand, and I think your kid understands that a little bit. You are, as a parent, entitled to know where we are, because you have to watch us, and you got to be careful, and you're responsible for us. It's the things that parents do, like the extra things they think they deserve that they kind of don't. Like, I think privacy is a really big deal for teens, so I'm going to just go off of that one. Parents think that they're entitled to go through your phone, which maybe they have their reasons or their signs or whatever that tell them okay, but you're not understanding that your kid doesn't do that to you. Your kid doesn't go through your phone and text your boss or text your friends, but you as a parent, you'll go through your kids' messages with their friends, and it really feels disrespectful. It's like, the age-old fight between couples, especially millennial couples, is the boyfriend and girlfriend going through each other's phone. You just don't do that. It's kind of like a thing. But our parents, they don't follow that. They don't see how important that is to us, and it seems like almost disrespectful. The same way it's disrespectful for a teenager to ignore their parents and not do their chores or something. It's the values just are in different places that we're not seeing that, if that makes sense. Like the same way that you guys value X, we value Y, and you're not putting the value to it, and it's almost like you're ignoring our feelings and ignoring what it is we
So we're not
feel.
we're not validating for you that if that's what it is important to you, then we could at least acknowledging that I see it. Even if it's not important to me, it's important to you, and I validated that. I get why it's important to you. At least have to acknowledge it.
Yeah, and I really want to point out that parents are real. In my experience or my opinion, parents are really entitled to everything about their kids, which to a certain extent, there's probably a line that I don't know about yet because I'm not a parent. I don't know if you agree, but there's a certain place where you have to stop and let your kids grow and learn and be on their own. Like in certain things, obviously not like their whole life, leave them alone, but in relationships, maybe you're not snooping through their text messages with their boyfriend at 16 years old, or, like it's just the entitlement that parents feel like they deserve to know everything.
I understand what you're saying because I understand the context, but don't be surprised if you get emails from parents that haven't trusted their kids. Kids are running away or using drugs, and they're gonna send you emails blasting you.
And again, like I said, I'm not a parent. I don't know. I don't see the sign. If you see the signs or whatever, you can do it. I'm not telling you you're a bad parent if you do it. It's just to keep in mind that your value, what's important to us. It kind of goes back to the T-shirt thing. Being shirted and wearing the shame shirt, that's important to me. That's my everything that day, that week, that month. And if you guys ignore it, it's
then you slowly lose respect for us.
Yeah. So we got to take a quick break, but stay tuned for more of the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Santa Clarita, bedbugs are taking over our city. They've invaded our homes, our businesses, and most importantly, our sleep. If you have suspicious bites that appear nightly, or have a bug that you need ID'd, your best option is to make one call to All Pro. We offer a 100% guarantee that your bedbug issues will be solved with heat in one treatment. No need to tent or spray your house with chemicals. Heat is all you need. Call 661-298-2200 or text me a bug picture to 661-645-0540. It's time to sleep tight again, SCV.
Healthcare can be difficult if you're underinsured or have Medi-Cal. Samuel Dixon Family Health Center can help. Services are available on a sliding fee schedule. The mission of the Samuel Dixon Family Health Center is to give the Santa Clarita Valley access to affordable, quality primary care. There are 3 locations to serve you: Canyon Country, Newhall, and Valverde. Go to sdfhc.org for more information and to find the location most convenient for you.
This holiday season, Party Homes has a special gift for homebuyers: shiny new appliances, merry and bright. Right now, during our Home for the Holidays event, when you buy a new move-in ready home at Arista or Verano before December 31st, we'll outfit your new home with a brand new GE washer, dryer, and French door refrigerator. Don't wait. This special offer ends December 31st, 2017. Visit partyhomes.com/homefortheholidays for details.
Hometown, your hometown station.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we're talking about who's really teaching your kids. And in the first segment, that's kind of exactly what we talked about. We talked about all the factors and forces in your kids' lives that are, kind of raising them without you a little bit. And the second section, we talked about what are the things that you as a parent could be teaching outside of school and their friends and everything that, and what we kind of dug down, it was really about the morals, the principles, values, and we went over honesty, integrity, we went over responsibility, and we went over honor and respect. But I kind of wanted to touch up on maybe one more thing that parents could be utilizing or being conscious of when it comes to teachable moments or finding a lesson to teach and pulling something out from there.
So you're asking
so
me
I
to
want to
come up with
know,
something.
yeah, like what, okay, we got honesty and integrity, we got responsibility and honor and respect. I feel like those are probably the main 3, but I feel like there's something else that if the moment comes up, it would be nice to be conscious of it so that you as the parent can teach it. Or even not as a parent. For me, I'm learning a lot of stuff just for relationships that I'm not realizing that, all my stuff comes up in those moments.
I would say the one thing that a lot of parents don't really realize or recognize is self-respect, self-love, self-acceptance, and realize that our children have limiting beliefs about themselves, that they're not good enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough. That's just the way the human brain works. Since we're little, we're creating self-limiting beliefs, and we wonder why we're struggling in life or, not confident or depressed or just not thriving in the way that our parents want us to be, is because we've convinced ourselves that we're not enough of something. So I would say that more good morals, values, and principles to be focused on is reminding your kids how extraordinary they are, regardless of the choices they made or the results that they have created for themselves.
I really like that you brought up self-love, because in our little millennial group, the Met, it's a couple of us young adults who get together and we talk about all the things that are kind of going on. And one of the topics that keeps popping up in the last couple of meetings was self-love, and realizing that it really all comes down to us and what's inside and our inner circle and everything, and it just keeps popping up. And it, interestingly enough, my sister, who's in the meeting, pointed out, she said she went a whole week, 2 weeks or whatever until the next meeting. And she said, ever since we talked about that, I've been realizing all of these things that I do that come from self-love or lack thereof. She was pointing out all of these either manipulative or lying or negative things about that have been going on just in that last week or so, and it all really stemmed from, I did that because I don't like this about myself, or I did that, so it was really interesting to I was really inspired to see her kind of admit to those things that a lot of us pretend to ignore, including myself. And it was also interesting to hear you as her father, or, you know, our father, say, you know what, like, I take responsibility. Like, I'm sorry I didn't teach you how to love yourself more. And like I said, that it was really inspiring to see that interaction, just because I don't see any parents teaching their kids self-love. Yeah, they'll tell them they're pretty. Yeah, they'll tell them that they're smart. But other than that, I don't think parents spend really any time like enrolling their kids into seeing what they see in them. And that's really, you know, a very conscious thing to do. Like, and I like I said, I was really inspired by it. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's actually one of the premises of my next book, which is a child's book. It's a book for children, and it's a book for conscious parents to read this book to their kids. It's a book of affirmations. And what I visualized is, you know, mom and dad sitting there, little boy or girl down on their lap and reading this book. And as they open the book, it's illustrations of little kids smiling and laughing, and their affirmations that are affirming their kids as they're reading it. And it's some of it's going to sound like, are you not that extraordinary human being that I believe you to be? Are you not that leader that inspires other people? And so it's a very powerful book to start the conscious awareness that you get to learn how to accept yourself and love yourself at 3 or 4 years old, so that you're not at 15 or 16 years old realizing that you don't love and accept yourself, and now you're needy of approval and validation, and you're now going searching for it in other relationships, looking for it outside of you rather than having it being reminded that it's already within you. And so this is some of my life coursework, is I get to figure out how to make amends to you guys for not learning those lessons early enough, and I get to help other people realize that and have that awakening so that they can build their kids up at 3 and 4 years old, such that they don't get to that point where they're struggling and trying to figure out how to love and accept themselves like that.
And I'm really excited to read that book because it's going to be a couple pages shorter than your first book. But you heard it here first. If you want, you know, if you haven't gotten the first book, The Inspirational Parent, there's a lot of, I guess, bigger words that are going to be in that book, and more insightful, especially for the parents, than the children's book. But one of the things that really inspired me in your book, The Inspirational Parent, is there's people that you know will randomly like come into the radio station and buy it, and they'll go, "What's this book about?" And I'll tell them, or Lori at the front desk will tell them about it, and they go, "Oh, that sounds good," and they'll just buy it just like that. And I find that so inspiring to the people who know nothing, and they go for it anyways.
Thank you for sharing your insight with them.
And that's all the time we have for today, unfortunately. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. right here on your hometown station, KHTS.